Imagine standing on a planet where the air itself can kill you. A world hidden beneath beautiful white clouds, but beneath them lies an endless nightmare. The ground is hot enough to melt metal. The pressure is so immense it would crush your body in seconds. Acid falls from the sky, and even our strongest machines survive for barely an hour before being destroyed. This is not a distant alien world from science fiction. This is Venus, Earth's twin. For centuries, astronomers believed Venus was a paradise waiting to be discovered. It has nearly the same size, the same gravity, and formed beside Earth in the early solar system. Many imagined vast oceans, tropical jungles, and perhaps even life hidden beneath its clouds. But when humanity finally pierced the veil, we uncovered one of the greatest tragedies in planetary history. Venus was not born a hellscape. Evidence suggests it may once have had oceans, rain, and blue skies just like Earth. Then something went catastrophically wrong. A runaway greenhouse effect transformed an entire world into a burning prison where temperatures never cool and the atmosphere became thick enough to crush steel. The terrifying part is this: Venus may be showing us what happens when a planet loses control of its climate. And if it happened to our sister world, could it one day happen to us? The day Venus stopped being Earth's twin. For centuries, humanity looked toward Venus with hope. Among all the planets in the solar system, it seemed the most familiar, the most alive. Hanging brilliantly in Earth's sky as the morning star and evening star, Venus glowed behind thick white clouds that concealed its surface completely. To ancient civilizations, it was beautiful. To astronomers, it was mysterious. And to scientists of the 20th century, it looked like possibility itself. Venus is almost the same size as Earth. Its gravity is so similar that if you stood there, you would barely notice the difference in your own weight. It formed from the same cosmic material, in the same neighborhood around the Sun, billions of years ago. Because of these similarities, many scientists believed Venus might simply be a warmer version of Earth, a tropical planet covered in oceans, storms, and dense jungles hidden beneath its clouds. Some even imagined giant alien ecosystems thriving in the darkness below. Science fiction embraced the dream completely. Old novels and films described Venus as a humid world filled with swamps, rainforests, and prehistoric creatures. It became humanity's imagined second home long before we ever reached it. And unlike Mars, which already looked cold and barren through telescopes, Venus kept its secrets hidden. The clouds acted like a curtain, reflecting sunlight so effectively that no one could see what waited underneath. But there was one problem. The more scientists studied Venus, the stranger it became. Powerful radio telescopes in the 1950s began detecting something impossible: extreme heat. The temperatures coming from beneath the clouds were far higher than anyone expected. At first, many researchers refused to believe the readings. Some thought the instruments were malfunctioning. Others suggested volcanic activity or unusual atmospheric effects. But the evidence kept growing stronger. Venus was not warm. It was unimaginably hot. Then came the space race. While the United States focused heavily on the moon, the Soviet Union turned its attention toward Venus. The Soviets launched a series of robotic probes called the Venera missions, designed to survive a journey into the unknown. What happened next shocked the world. Many of the early spacecraft never even reached the ground. Some lost communication during descent. Others were crushed by atmospheric pressure before landing. Engineers realized that Venus' atmosphere was far denser and more hostile than anything they had predicted. The planet wasn't hiding a paradise beneath its clouds. It was hiding a death trap. Still, the Soviets kept going. Mission after mission failed, but each failure revealed new clues. The atmosphere was mostly carbon dioxide. The pressure at the surface was catastrophic. equivalent to being nearly a kilometer underwater on Earth. And the temperatures continued to climb higher with every new measurement. Finally, in 1975, the Venera 9 spacecraft achieved what no machine had done before. It landed on the surface of another planet and transmitted the first image ever taken from Venus. The photograph was terrifying. Instead of oceans and forests, the camera revealed a wasteland of shattered rocks under a dim orange sky. There were no signs of life, no water, no movement except the thick atmosphere itself. The light was eerie and unnatural, filtered through layers of toxic clouds high above the surface. It looked less like another Earth and more like the ruins of a world that had died long ago. And then, after only 53 minutes, the probe fell silent forever. The planet that melts machines. The image sent back by Venera 9 changed Venus forever. Humanity no longer saw it as Earth's mysterious twin. We saw it for what it truly was, the most hostile planet in the solar system. But the deeper scientists looked, the more terrifying Venus became. The Soviet Union refused to stop exploring it. After Venera 9, even stronger landers were built, designed like armored tanks to survive conditions no machine had ever faced before. Engineers wrapped electronics in thick insulation, created cooling systems to delay overheating, and built pressure-resistant shells capable of surviving forces that would instantly destroy ordinary spacecraft. These probes were not designed to explore comfortably. They were designed to endure torture for as long as possible. Then, in 1982, Venera 13 descended through the Venusian clouds. What it discovered remains one of the most haunting moments in space exploration history. As the spacecraft fell toward the surface, it entered an atmosphere unlike anything on Earth. The air became so dense that the probe had to push through it almost like moving underwater. Winds screamed through layers of toxic clouds made not of water, but sulfuric acid. Lightning flashed deep inside the atmosphere while sunlight struggled to penetrate the endless haze. When the lander finally touched the ground, it survived. And for the first time in history, humanity saw Venus in color. The images were surreal. The sky glowed yellow-orange, as if the entire planet were trapped inside a furnace. Jagged rocks lay scattered across the barren surface. The horizon faded into a thick toxic fog. There were no oceans, no life, no movement, only heat, pressure, and silence. But the real horror was invisible. The temperature on Venus averages around 880 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead. Even though Mercury is closer to the Sun, Venus is far hotter because its atmosphere traps heat with terrifying efficiency. The planet is wrapped in a blanket of carbon dioxide so thick that heat cannot escape. Once sunlight enters, it stays trapped forever. Day and night barely matter. The entire world burns continuously. Then there is the pressure. The atmosphere on Venus is about 93 times thicker than Earth's. Standing on its surface would feel like being crushed beneath nearly a kilometer of ocean water. Human lungs could never function there. Bones would fail. Even submarines designed for Earth's deep oceans would struggle to survive. Venus does not merely kill visitors. It destroys them. And yet, somehow, Venera 13 continued transmitting. For 127 minutes, the probe endured conditions that should have been impossible for electronics to survive. It analyzed the soil, recorded sounds from the alien world, and sent data back across millions of kilometers to Earth. Scientists learned that the rocks were volcanic basalt, evidence that Venus had once been shaped by massive volcanic activity. They also discovered that the planet's atmosphere was almost entirely carbon dioxide, creating a runaway greenhouse effect on a planetary scale. Then the inevitable happened. The heat slowly penetrated the spacecraft's protective shell. Internal systems began failing one by one. Electronics overheated. Communication weakened. Finally, after just over 2 hours, the signal disappeared forever. Today, those Soviet probes still remain on the surface of Venus, silent metal graves scattered across a dead world, melted, crushed, and abandoned beneath a sky of poison. Tiny monuments to humanity's curiosity and to the unimaginable brutality of our closest planetary neighbor. How Venus turned into hell. The terrifying world we see today was not how Venus began. That is what makes the story so disturbing. Scientists now believe Venus may once have looked shockingly similar to Earth. Billions of years ago, it could have had oceans, rain, rivers, and perhaps even blue skies hidden beneath sunlight. Instead of a burning wasteland, Venus may have been a living world. The evidence for this ancient past comes from a strange clue hidden in the atmosphere: deuterium. Deuterium is a heavier form of hydrogen found in water molecules. When water escapes into space, the lighter hydrogen disappears more easily, while the heavier deuterium remains behind. When scientists studied Venus, they discovered an enormous amount of deuterium in its atmosphere, far more than Earth has. To planetary scientists, this was a ghost from the past, a chemical fingerprint proving that Venus once possessed massive amounts of water, possibly enough to cover the planet in shallow oceans. So what happened? The answer lies in one of the most terrifying processes in planetary science: the runaway greenhouse effect. Long ago, the sun was slightly cooler than it is today. Venus existed close enough to remain warm, but not necessarily deadly. However, as millions of years passed, the sun slowly grew hotter and brighter. Because Venus orbits much closer to the sun than Earth does, it reached a critical tipping point first. The oceans began to evaporate. At first, the warming may have seemed small, but water vapor itself is an extremely powerful greenhouse gas. As more water evaporated into the atmosphere, the planet trapped more heat. More heat caused more evaporation. More evaporation trapped even more heat. The cycle fed itself endlessly, growing stronger and stronger until the entire climate spiraled out of control. Eventually, Venus became too hot for liquid water to exist at all. Its oceans boiled away completely. The water vapor rose high into the upper atmosphere, where intense ultraviolet radiation from the sun broke the molecules apart. The lightweight hydrogen escaped into space forever, while the remaining oxygen reacted with carbon and sulfur from volcanic gases. Venus was slowly stripped of its water, molecule by molecule, over hundreds of millions of years. But the disaster did not stop there. On Earth, oceans help regulate the climate by absorbing carbon dioxide. Rain washes carbon into rocks, creating a natural system that stabilizes temperature over long periods of time. Venus lost that system completely. Without oceans, carbon dioxide released by volcanoes remained trapped in the atmosphere. Layer after layer built up over billions of years until the planet became wrapped in a suffocating blanket of greenhouse gases. The result was catastrophic. Temperatures climbed beyond anything life could survive. The atmosphere thickened into a crushing ocean of carbon dioxide. Sulfur compounds formed toxic clouds of sulfuric acid. Volcanoes may have resurfaced huge portions of the planet, covering Venus in hardened lava plains. Any ancient oceans, coastlines, or signs of a habitable world were erased forever beneath heat and rock. Venus did not explode. It did not collide with another planet. It simply crossed a climatic line that it could never return from. That is what makes Venus so terrifying. It shows that a planet can die slowly. A world can lose its oceans, poison its skies, and transform into a furnace through the unstoppable laws of physics alone. Venus is not just another planet. It is a warning written across an entire world. And as Venus burns beneath its toxic skies, It reminds us how fragile paradise truly is. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysteries of the universe, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and join us for the next exploration into the unknown.